Kay said humans wouldn't last a single cycle in the Iridian expanse, that we would crumble under the weight of the cosmos, extinguished by species older than galaxies themselves. Yet here we are, hurtling through the void, our survival written in blood, fire, and defiance. But the real question is, how did we get this far? How did fragile, unpredictable humans stand against the war that tore the galaxy apart? The expanse stretches like a wound across the universe, nebulae bleeding violet and emerald across the darkness, jagged asteroids orbiting dead suns like bones in an unmarked grave. In the center of it all lies Etherian, a planet the Council calls impossible, a world of floating mountains, endless storms, and ruins older than memory. No species has touched it in eons, yet humans came, and what we found there was not meant for our eyes. The first encounter came through a signal, not one of greeting or trade, but a resonance, vibrating through every transmitter in the sector. It wasn't language as we know it. It was memory, hunger, and warning all at once. The signal carried a shape, a story, but one the galaxy didn't expect a human mind to decode. Dr. Alien Marston called it the echo of the primeval. No one else in the Council understood. Humans listened. Humans acted. In the dead zones near the Ganeth Rift, our ships drifted past colossal skeletal remains of creatures that dwarfed anything in known catalogs. Leviathans, perhaps our gods long extinct. Their bones were etched with crystalline runes, and beneath the calcified ridges, faint, pulsing lights suggested that something inside them still breathed, still dreamed. P. Valise, rogue xenobiologist and human ally, swore she felt eyes watching from within the hollows, but we had no choice. The Council had abandoned Zetherian to its death. Only humans dared enter. The planet's atmosphere was a living nightmare. Storms danced in spirals the size of continents, winds slicing through the skeletal mountains like sharpened glass. Shadows moved with intent, not the random drifting of dust or debris, but something aware, ancient, calculating. We landed in what the locals called the Hollow Basin, a crater filled with structures that were neither organic nor artificial, as if they had grown and been constructed at once. They hummed with energy, subtle at first, then overwhelming, vibrating through the hulls of our ships and into our bones. It was here that we saw the first dragon. Not a beast of legend, but a predator of cosmic design. Scales like fractured nebulae, eyes burning with a light older than the first star, wings that could eclipse moons. It slept among the ruins, its breath a mist of plasma that scoured the ground with each exhale. Every instinct screamed for retreat. Every human nerve burned with curiosity. Alien whispered, "They've been waiting for us." As we studied the ruins, we discovered glyphs, stories carved into stone and crystal that shifted under our gaze. They spoke of wars the galaxy had forgotten, of alliances between species that predated the Council itself. The glyphs hinted at a weapon, a relic so potent that entire civilizations were obliterated to hide it. And in the middle of one shattered plaza, we found the first human mark. Not graffiti, not a signature, but a handprint NT glowing faintly, as if the planet itself had acknowledged our arrival. Night on Zetherian wasn't darkness, it was awareness. The storms brought soundless lightning, folding space into impossible angles, and shadows stretched into forms that shouldn't exist. From the sky, we glimpsed other dragons gliding silently, eyes reflecting our intrusion. They were hunters, guardians, or perhaps witnesses. We could not tell. But their presence meant that the relic was near, and the galaxy hadn't prepared for humans to find it. One evening, as our team explored a collapsed tower that hummed like a dying heart, Kay Vallis detected movement beneath the floor, not mechanical, not entirely flesh. Something that flickered in and out of reality, leaving impressions of clawed limbs, serpentine forms, and scales that shimmered with starlight. It reached toward us, not to attack, but to warn or to test. The humans who were brave enough or foolish enough to step closer felt a resonance in their minds, a memory of the first war, the first dragons, the first humans who had survived against impossible odds. We discovered our first clue, a chamber lined with crystalline sarcophagi. Inside them were beings that defied classification, part dragon, part human, part something the galaxy had no name for. And each sarcophagus pulsed with a low, almost musical hum. The humans among us felt it in their bones, an inexplicable connection, as if the relic had already chosen us, as if it recognized the singularity of human resilience. But then the ground trembled. The storm above us split with a sound like 1,000 collapsing stars, and from the shadows of the ruins, drones emerged. Not council drones. These were older, tarnished with eons of neglect, armed with weapons that could tear through ship hulls as easily as flesh, and behind them, a dreadnought of black crystalline plasma, the size of a small moon, shifting through the atmosphere like a predator stalking prey. The humans fought differently. We didn't have the fleets or the technology of other species, but we had adaptability, courage, and audacity. Alien's team used resonance devices to mimic the dragon's calls, drawing the creatures into the battle. The sky erupted in chaos, dragons diving through plasma fire, humans maneuvering with reckless precision, and the dreadnought retaliating with a storm of energy that shattered mountains and sent tidal waves across the hollow basin. Amid the fighting, a hatchling emerged, small, fragile, and screaming in a frequency that cut through the dreadnought's sensors. Alien grabbed it instinctively, and in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The relic stirred. Light cascaded through the ruins, shaping the storm into patterns we couldn't comprehend. And the humans, holding that tiny, impossible creature, found themselves at the center of forces that even the galaxy's oldest species feared. But Zitharian had one final secret. Beneath the sarcophagi, a fracture in the planet's core began to widen, spewing molten energy into the sky. The ground cracked, swallowing ships and ruins alike. And as the tremors shook our bones, a voice, or memory, or signal, reached into the minds of every human present. It whispered not in words, but in certainty, "You are not meant to survive." Yet here you are. Before we could respond, before we could understand, the tremor revealed something no one expected. A colossal figure emerging from the molten rift, scales glittering with molten starlight, eyes locked on humanity. Not anger, not hunger, but calculation, recognition. And then, with a sweep of its wings, it lifted from the ground, dragging the ruins and drones into the storm, leaving only a single message etched in fire across the sky. The galaxy underestimated humans. The war is not over. And in that moment, as the storms raged and the dragons circled above, we realized that survival was never enough. Humanity had awoken something older than time, something that would demand courage, cunning, and the kind of audacity no other species had dared. But whether we would live to see the next cycle, no one could say. The rift closed behind us with a sound that resonated like the death knell of a star. Ash and molten stone rained across the hollow basin, and yet, somehow, we were alive. The colossal dragon, molten scales flickering like a furnace sun, had retreated into the storms above, leaving the hatchling clutched in Alien's arms. It shivered against his chest, trembling not from fear, but from the raw, incomprehensible energy that still pulsed through the ground. The relic had stirred again, its voice fading but leaving echoes that throbbed like a heartbeat in every human present. For the aliens watching from beyond the void, our survival should have been impossible. Every sensor, every prediction, had marked humans for extinction. Yet we endured, not through strength nor technology alone, but through something the galaxy consistently underestimated: stubbornness. We adapted. We empathized, we questioned. And in that questioning, in that daring defiance, we found paths that the Council, with all its calculated precision, would never take. Cave Elise moved quickly, scanning the fractured ruins with a resonance probe, a device she had cobbled together from human ingenuity and scavenged alien tech. The probe hummed, responding to the lingering energy of the relic, drawing ghostly lines in the air, a star map, fractured, incomplete, but unmistakably pointing beyond the Iridian expanse. This was no longer about Cytherean alone. The relic was a breadcrumb trail leading to worlds older than the Council, worlds whose existence had been erased from all records. The map revealed more than locations. Genetic signatures pulsed across the projection, markers of species that had vanished billions of cycles ago, yet whose DNA lingered, encoded into the very structure of space-time. Among them were echoes of dragons, yes, but also hints of human-like resilience, mutations, or traits we had never consciously developed. The implication was terrifying. Something had been seeding, guiding, or testing humanity long before we even walked the stars. Something had deliberately made us survivors. "Listen," Kivala said, voice trembling despite her usual composure. "It's a pattern, not just locations, but timelines. These places, these species, they're tied to events we can't even fully measure. Wars, extinctions, and somehow, to us, Alien held the hatchling closer. Its scales flickered, reflecting the map like a living prism, and for a moment, it emitted a resonance that was almost musical. It was as if the creature understood the map, recognized the markers, and was trying to communicate the urgency. We didn't yet know what it was trying to say, but we felt it. And for the first time, a strange certainty took hold. Humans were not accidental in this war. We were participants, perhaps even catalysts. But understanding the relic's message drew attention. From the shadows of orbit, the Council's dreadnoughts appeared, their black hulls absorbing light, engines humming with the quiet menace of inevitability. They had detected the activation of the relic and dispatched fleets to retrieve it, or destroy anyone bold enough to claim it. The humans didn't flinch. Where alien species would have retreated or negotiated, we fought differently. Not out of hubris, but because we understood something they could not. That hesitation often meant death, and sometimes, audacity could change the odds. The chase began. Through the scarred skies of Cytherean, we leapt from storm to storm, our ships weaving through jagged mountains and magnetic whirlpools. The hatchling clung to Alien via containment harness we barely trusted, but every jolt of turbulence, every pulse of plasma from Council drones, only strengthened the bond forming between human and dragon. These were not pets, not weapons. They were allies, beings whose survival instincts mirrored our own stubborn resolve. In their eyes, we glimpsed the same understanding that had allowed humans to endure millennia of impossible odds. Our flight took us beyond Cytherean, into a nebula that shimmered violet and gold, gravity bending erratically under the mass of hidden stars. Here, the Council's warships struggled, their systems unprepared for such chaotic conditions. We used it to our advantage, dancing through gravitational eddies and plasma storms, the hatchling screaming in resonance that augmented our shields. It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was human. Within the nebula, we discovered an abandoned research station, suspended in the heart of a swirling maelstrom. Its hull was scarred, its lights dead, but its architecture suggested alien minds far older than the Council. Inside, we found data cores etched with a forbidden knowledge, reports of experiments linking dragons and humans, tracing patterns of survival, and documenting encounters with entities that defied the very laws of physics. Some documents were labeled classified by civilizations that had long since fallen. Others contained warnings in languages no longer spoken. The humans among us devoured this knowledge, piecing together the fragments with intuition, deduction, and the audacity that the galaxy consistently underestimated. One report described a phenomenon as the primordial resonance. It suggested that dragons, relics, and certain humans were attuned to a frequency that could manipulate reality itself, bending space-time, awakening dormant species, or even triggering catastrophic chain reactions in stellar systems. The document warned that activating this resonance outside controlled conditions could annihilate entire colonies. Yet, paradoxically, the report implied that only humans, in combination with dragons, could control it safely. Somehow, instinct, empathy, and adaptability gave us an edge no other species possessed. The hatchling, now pulsing in tandem with the relic, confirmed the theory in ways we couldn't yet quantify. When Alien extended his hand, it mirrored his motion, sending ripples through the station's energy matrix. Lights flared, holographic maps shifted, and for a fleeting moment, the station came alive. The relic, the hatchling, and humanity resonated together, a signal not just through space, but through time itself. But revelation invited danger. The station shuddered as a council dreadnought emerged from the edge of the nebula, its sensors locking onto our signature. Unlike humans, the council relied on fear, intimidation, and overwhelming force. But we relied on something else: creativity. Alien, Valise, and a team of engineers devised a plan that no alien species would attempt. Using the station's resonance fields, we amplified the hatchling's frequency to disrupt the dreadnought's targeting systems. Energy pulses danced like lightning through the hull of the enemy ship, scrambling navigation and communications. The humans cheered, not out of arrogance, but relief. The impossible had been achieved once more. After the dust settled, Alien stared at the hatchling. "You know more than we do," he whispered, "and somehow, you've chosen us." The hatchling blinked, scales flickering, wings trembling, and let out a sound that was part roar, part song, part signal. In that sound, we felt the history of countless worlds, the echoes of wars we barely understood, and the promise that survival was only the beginning. Our journey took us next to a planet circling a binary star system, a world that appeared dead but glowed faintly beneath its frozen crust. Subterranean chasms pulsed with an eerie blue light, as if the planet itself breathed. Here, we discovered the remnants of an ancient laboratory, not alien, not human, but something in between. Biomes containing dormant dragons, human-like specimens, and hybridized forms hinted at eons of experimentation, long erased from galactic memory. The implications were staggering. Humans had been intertwined with cosmic events from the very start, not as observers, but as participants. Yet the discovery brought tension. Valise uncovered logs of a council mission centuries earlier, attempting to control or erase these experiments. They feared human adaptability. They feared empathy. They feared audacity. And now we were repeating history, but on our terms. Humans didn't just survive the Council's machinations. We challenged them, turning their own obsession with control into an advantage. But the planet had one final test. As we descended into the chasms, the frozen crust fractured, revealing a network of luminescent tunnels filled with bioluminescent flora, resonating pools, and the faint silhouettes of dragons awakening from centuries of dormancy. Their eyes flickered open, ancient and calculating, recognizing us, testing us. Some hissed, some roared, some simply observed. The hatchling led us through, signaling that we had a role, guardians, messengers, or something far more critical than we could comprehend. Suddenly, the ground quaked. From the deepest cavern, an alien entity emerged, a living storm of energy and scale, pulsing with the same frequency as the relic. Its form shifted constantly, impossible to describe, part dragon, part human, part something else entirely. It regarded us not as prey, not as invaders, but as challengers worthy of recognition. And in that instant, we realized that the war we had survived was only a prelude. The real conflict, one that could reshape the galaxy, was only beginning. Alien stepped forward, holding the hatchling between them. "We didn't just survive," he said, voice steady despite the tremors. "We adapted, we learned, we fought, and we're not done yet." The entity pulsed in response, an acknowledgement, a challenge, a warning. Somewhere deep within, the relic hummed, the hatchling resonated, and humans prepared for what no other species could even imagine. A war that would test not just our survival, but our very understanding of life, time, and destiny. As the entity withdrew into the tunnels, leaving only echoes of its presence, we realized something profound. The galaxy had underestimated humans at every turn. Our ingenuity, our empathy, our reckless courage, all of it had become a weapon, a shield, and a key. But the most dangerous question remained unanswered. Why had we been chosen? And what would we have to sacrifice to survive the next revelation? The chasms pulsed around us. The dragons stirred. The relic hummed louder than ever. And somewhere above, Council dreadnoughts waited, watching. Humanity stood at the threshold of a truth too vast for any single mind. Yet we faced it as we always had, together, defiant, unbroken, and unwilling to surrender to the impossible. And then, in the deepest shadows we found it, a crystalline shard, larger than any ship, vibrating with a resonance that felt like the heartbeat of a star. In it, fragments of memory flickered. The first human crossing into the stars, dragons soaring through unknown skies, wars that had reshaped galaxies. And at the center of it all, one image burned brighter than any other. A human hand reaching into the void, touching a force older than time itself. The hatchling shivered, the relic pulsed. And we understood, without words, that the next step would demand more than survival. It would demand humanity's audacity, courage, and heart on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The war was not over. It had only begun. The crystalline shard pulsed in the chasm's darkness, a heartbeat in sync with the hatchling's wings and the relic's low hum. Every human instinct screamed caution, yet curiosity, that reckless audacity that had carried us across impossible odds, urged forward. Alien reached out, hand trembling slightly. The hatchling nestled against his chest like a living compass. As his fingers brushed the shard, visions exploded across our minds, fragments, incomplete yet undeniable, of wars older than the oldest council records. Dragons and humans fought side by side against entities that seemed to consume galaxies. Energy, chaos, resonance, blood, all woven together into a tapestry that neither science nor history could fully decode. Valis fell to her knees, scanning the data flooding from the shard. They weren't just allies, she whispered, voice hoarse. Humans were catalysts, keys. Something in our biology resonates with the dragons, with the relics, with forces the galaxy thought it controlled. Her eyes darted toward the hatchling, whose scales flickered brighter, reacting as though confirming her hypothesis. We weren't meant to survive, she added. We were meant to activate something. The realization was terrifying. Every human advantage we had taken for granted, curiosity, empathy, adaptability, suddenly felt like a design, not an accident. And the galaxy, the council, the ancient species, none of them had predicted that we would endure, let alone understand. The shard's pulse intensified, and the floor beneath our boots thrummed with energy. The tunnels around us began to shimmer, walls stretching and folding as if the planet itself were aware we had touched its core. But we had no time to ponder the morality of it. The Council's dreadnoughts had tracked us through the nebula, arriving with a patience born of arrogance. Their ships moved with the inevitability of death, engines bright against the auroras of the storm, weapons calibrated to vaporize any resistance. Humanity's response was immediate. Alien barked orders, humans racing to jury-rig the ancient station systems into weapons, traps, and shields. Our ingenuity was our shield, our courage, our weapon. Where the Council relied on precision, we relied on unpredictability, bending physics, resonance, and dragons into a choreography of survival. The first dragon emerged from the shadows, molten wings casting fiery reflections across the crystalline walls. It roared, and the sound harmonized with the shard, creating a resonance wave that sent the dreadnought's targeting systems into chaos. Human pilots weaved through corridors of energy and gravity flux, harnessing the shard's pulses to amplify shields and disrupt sensors. Every moment demanded instinct, courage, and improvisation. Every heartbeat reminded us that, for the galaxy, humans were not supposed to exist in this scenario, and yet, we persisted. In the lull between volleys, as the first dreadnought staggered from the resonance pulse, Alien turned to the hatchling. Its eyes burned with awareness. "Do you know what's coming?" he murmured. The hatchling responded with a single pulse of its wings, and suddenly, the chamber shifted. Walls became transparent. Beneath the station, buried in glowing chasms, were tens of thousands of dormant dragons, their forms flickering like ghosts, some human-like in scale and posture, others serpentine and monstrous. The shard's energy was awakening them, calling them to the surface, or perhaps calling us into their purpose. Veli studied the projections, her face pale. "This isn't just a relic," she said. "It's a beacon. And if we're right, activating it might awaken forces the Council and every species in known space thought were gone." She paused. "Including the ones that started the first war." Alien's hand tightened on the hatchling. "Then we survive. That's all we've ever done." But even as he said it, doubt crept in. Could survival alone be enough? Could audacity and empathy withstand entities that existed outside stars, outside time itself? The humans around him, their eyes wide with fear and determination, didn't hesitate. They trusted instinct, even when logic screamed that retreat was the only option. The ground shook violently. From the tunnels below, a surge of energy erupted, a pulse that bent the walls of the station and sent humans tumbling across the floor. The hatchling screeched, resonance weaving with the shard's pulse, and suddenly, a figure emerged from the luminescent chasm, a dragon, colossal, but unlike any we had seen. Its scales shimmered with liquid metal, wings stretching beyond the chamber's ceiling, eyes reflecting stars. And beneath the scales, the faint outline of human-like musculature hinted at what no one wanted to admit. Dragons and humans shared more than history. "This," Alien breathed. "This is what they feared." The dragon spoke, not in words, but in thought, a resonance that seared into our minds. "You are both the key and the catalyst. Fail, and the galaxy will burn. Succeed, and it may never be the same again." Fear threatened to overwhelm us. Even the humans who had stared down annihilation countless times felt the weight of being chosen or tested. But courage, that stubborn, reckless trait that defined us, surfaced. Alien steadied his breath. "We survive," he said again, this time more than a mantra, it was a vow. "We adapt, we endure, and we will finish what was started on our terms." Veli's fingers flew over the station's interface, translating the shard's resonance into usable energy, while pilots and engineers improvised new ways to harness the dragon's power. The air hummed with tension and electricity, the very walls bending as if acknowledging our audacity. And as we prepared for what the Council would call inevitable defeat, a second pulse erupted, a distortion in space that revealed the truth of the shard. It wasn't just a relic. It was a fragment of a greater consciousness, something older than the first dragon, older than human memory. Its purpose wasn't destruction or war. It was awakening a network of life, intelligence, and power that had slumbered for eons, waiting for species with the courage to reach beyond survival. And in that network, humans had a role no other species could fulfill. But then came the betrayal. From the shadows of the station, one of our own, a human pilot, someone we had trusted implicitly, activated a hidden transmitter. The signal pulsed outward, and within moments, the Council realized the full scale of what we had found. Their dreadnoughts recalibrated, weapons charged, fleets converged. Our advantage, precarious as it was, evaporated in an instant. Humanity, dragons, relics, all targeted for containment or annihilation. The hatchling screeched, wings flaring in resonance, but Alien froze, realizing the depth of the betrayal. The pilot stepped forward, voice cold and unyielding. "We can't control this," they said. "The galaxy isn't ready. We're expendable." Alien's fist tightened around the hatchling's containment harness. "No," he said. "We decide what we do. We survive. We control our destiny. Not the Council, not fear, not fate." The dragon stirred, molten wings beating against gravity, lifting shards of rock and debris into the air. Its gaze locked onto the betrayer, and for a moment, time itself seemed to pause. The air shimmered with resonance, and the humans, standing shoulder to shoulder, felt an unspoken understanding. We were in this together, our bond with the dragons stronger than the fear of annihilation. Then the station quaked violently, the shard pulsing in response to the dragon and the humans alike. Visions surged, a war spanning galaxies, dragons and humans intertwined in battles that had shaped stars, civilizations rising and falling in a dance of resilience and audacity. And at the center of it all, the shard projected a single image, the first human reaching across space, touching a force that no council, no alien, no entity could comprehend. It was then we realized the magnitude of what we had discovered. The shard wasn't just a relic. It was a map, a test, and a weapon all at once. And humans were the only species capable of wielding it, not through brute force, not through calculation, but through courage, empathy, and the reckless refusal to surrender to impossible odds. The betrayal had shifted everything. The Council's intervention was imminent. The awakened dragons below the chasm stirred, some hostile, some cautious, all watching. And the shard's resonance hummed with anticipation, as if the galaxy itself held its breath, waiting to see if humanity would rise to the challenge or falter under the weight of destiny. Alien turned to the humans around him, eyes burning with resolve. "This is it," he said. "We either step forward, or everything dies, not tomorrow, not in some hypothetical future, now. And we do it together, human and dragon, heart and instinct, defiance and courage. This is our war, and we will fight it our way." The hatchling pulsed in agreement, wings unfurling. The shard's light bathed the chamber, casting shadows that danced like ancient warriors across the walls. Outside, Council dreadnoughts pierced the nebulous storm, weapons primed, sensors ablaze. And in the silence before the storm, a single truth crystallized. The galaxy had underestimated humans at every turn. But now, underestimated would no longer mean invisible. It would mean unstoppable. As the first dreadnought's weapons charged, the dragon rose fully, molten wings slicing through space, flames igniting the tunnels. An alien lifted the hatchling higher, aligning it with the shard's resonance. The humans braced, hearts pounded, minds raced. And in that moment, the impossible became imminent. A convergence of destiny, courage, and awakening that would either destroy everything or remake the galaxy forever. The shard pulsed once more. And then, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The nebula outside the station churned violently, colors folding in on themselves like molten glass. Gravity shifted, twisting reality into impossible angles. Council dreadnoughts loomed, dark as voids, engines burning through the storm. We had no fleet to match them, no strategy that could guarantee survival. But humans never relied on guarantees. We relied on courage, on audacity, on the stubborn refusal to yield. Alien stood at the heart of the chamber, the hatchling cradled in his arms, its scales glowing with the resonance of the shard. Around him, humans moved with practiced chaos, rigging the ancient station to act not as a fortress, but as a conduit, a bridge between species, between past and present, between humanity and forces the galaxy had long forgotten. Kavalis coordinated, her voice steady despite the tension. Every pulse from the shard, every thrum of energy from the dragons, flowed through her fingers into weapons, shields, and communications. The largest dragon, molten-scaled and immense, hovered above the chamber. Its eyes reflected stars, older than any map, and for a moment, time slowed. It was not a beast. It was a sentinel, a witness, a living testament to the wars that had shaped galaxies. And in its gaze, humans recognized something rare: acknowledgement, respect, even trust. The dreadnoughts began their assault, weapons tearing through the nebula's plasma storms. Human pilots twisted through the gravitational anomalies, using debris fields as cover, improvising maneuvers that no algorithm could predict. Lasers struck the walls, sending shards of crystal and metal spiraling through the air. Yet in every movement, in every heartbeat, humanity's essence shone, reckless, brilliant, unyielding. Where aliens saw weakness, we turned instinct into advantage. The hatchling pulsed, wings resonating in sync with the shard. It let out a cry high and clear that rippled across the station and beyond, reaching dragons sleeping in the chasms, resonating through the nebula. One by one, they rose, enormous forms cutting through the storm, wings slicing space itself, eyes burning with intelligence and recognition. Some circled above, creating vortexes that distorted the dreadnought's targeting systems. Others engaged directly, claws and fire meeting steel in a chaotic ballet. Alien's mind raced, trying to coordinate the impossible. The shard responded to his intent, a subtle understanding flowing through its pulses. He realized that survival was no longer the goal. Understanding was. Control was a shared effort, a synergy between humans and dragons, between instinct and resonance. And in that realization, fear transformed into clarity. But then the betrayal returned. The pilot who had signaled the council tried to seize the shard, convinced the humans could not be trusted. Time slowed. The hatchling screeched, wings striking with precision, knocking the betrayer off balance. Alien moved instinctively, placing himself between human and shard. The dragon above extended a wing, molten plasma scorching the air around the traitor, forcing them to retreat. Humanity had not only survived external threats, now it had to defend its own. The shard pulsed again, brighter this time, revealing a vision that spanned eons. Dragons and humans had walked together long before any council had existed, shaping worlds, surviving catastrophes, and seeding civilizations. The relic was not just a weapon or a beacon. It was a record, a promise, a memory encoded in energy and life. The galaxy's greatest war had been a trial, and humans were the culmination, the unexpected spark that had endured where others had fallen. The council, seeing the awakening of dragons and the shard's resonance, hesitated. Its fleets faltered, calculations disrupted by forces beyond comprehension. Humanity did not wait. Alien's team used the station to amplify the shard's signal, sending resonance pulses that stabilized the dragon's energy and disrupted the dreadnoughts without destroying them. The humans had no desire for slaughter, only survival, only the freedom to choose their path. And in that choice, the galaxy began to see something it had never anticipated, that courage and empathy could bend even cosmic power to purpose. The largest dragon landed beside Alien, molten wings folding like armor. Its heat washed over him, its gaze locked on humanity as if weighing its place in the continuum of life. Slowly, the hatchling climbed from his arms to its mother, their scales shimmering in harmony. A single resonance passed between them, quiet but profound, vibrating through bone and metal alike. The station, the shard, the dragons, and humanity pulsed as one, a fragile, breathtaking harmony forged in chaos. Outside, the nebula calmed. The dreadnoughts, disabled and disoriented, retreated into the storm, their calculations rendered meaningless by forces they could not comprehend. The council, for the first time in cycles beyond counting, hesitated. And in that hesitation lay a victory no laser or firestorm could achieve. Humans had not just survived. Humans had reshaped the battlefield, reshaped understanding, and demonstrated that survival could carry the weight of purpose. Kay Valis approached Alien, her eyes reflecting both relief and awe. "You, we, all of us," she said, gesturing at the dragons, the hatchling, the shard. "We did what the galaxy thought impossible." Alien nodded, exhaustion and wonder etched across his face. "Not us alone, together, that's the difference." He looked toward the molten-scaled dragon, feeling the silent intelligence behind its gaze. "We fight, we adapt, we endure. That's human nature. That's why they never expected us to survive." In the quiet that followed, the station hummed softly, the shard's energy receding into a steady glow. The dragons, now awakened, returned to the chasms below, some taking wing toward distant planets, carrying with them a fragment of humanity's defiance, a reminder that courage could awaken even the oldest forces. The hatchling followed its mother, wings fluttering like sparks against the dark, a promise of continuity, of bond of trust forged in fire and blood. Alien lingered on the observation deck, gazing at the nebula now calm and radiant. He felt the shard's pulse, subtle but insistent, a reminder that the universe had more to reveal, more to test, and that humans had a place in it, not as pawns or curiosities, but as participants, as catalysts, as beings capable of resonance with the deepest forces of existence. He turned to Cavelis. "The Council will try again," he said quietly. "They always do. But we know something they don't. Survival isn't about force. It's about heart, instinct, and daring to reach beyond fear. That's why we endure." Cavelis smiled faintly, the weight of exhaustion softened by hope. "And dragons," she added. "Don't forget dragons." Alien laughed softly, a sound more human than heroic, but no less profound. "Never." As they watched, the nebula shifted, stars bending in silent patterns, cosmic winds carrying hints of memory and resonance. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, other shards, other relics, and perhaps other dragons stirred, responding to the same call. And for the first time, humans were not just witnesses to cosmic history, we were participants, inheritors, and authors of the next chapter. The shard dimmed, the dragons retreated into the chasms, and humanity prepared to leave Zetherian behind. But the impression we left was indelible, a mark of audacity, of defiance, of empathy that no council, no calculation, no ancient war could erase. The galaxy had learned at last that humans could endure what others could not, and in our endurance, we reshaped the rules. Alien touched the hatchling's final pulse as it curled beside the molten-scaled dragon. "You were right," he whispered. "We are ready." And in that silence, the universe seemed to respond, folding around us like a story told in light and shadow, waiting for the next human heart brave enough to reach beyond survival. The stars flickered as if smiling. Somewhere, deep in the echoes of forgotten wars and ancient resonance, a question lingered, for dragons, for humans, for the galaxy itself. What does it truly mean to survive? And what do we do when survival is only the beginning? Alien watched the nebula fade into calm, the shard now a quiet memory, the hatchling resting in the warmth of its mother. Humanity had endured. Humanity had reached. And humanity, in the quiet audacity of heart and instinct, had become part of a story far larger than any council could command, any war could contain, any star could witness. The universe waited. And for once we were ready,